your screen.
Sounds like it.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to try, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to try springing this thing on you again. So you should be able to see right now a question says, how confident are you in your ability to use the library's resources? And over on the right-hand side here, there should be a little thing. And if you want to do it by your phone, that's probably the easiest thing. So you can just text a code to this number here, 37607. And let me see, is it active? It is active. Okay, no, now it's active. Okay. So I'll give you a minute to play around with that. Hopefully I'll get 3 responses. I want to see if this thing actually works. But while you're playing around with that, I'll bring up the presentation slide. Here we go. And now we should be seeing library searching and citing. Does that sound right? Okay, cool, great. Okay, so very quickly, I'm not going to beat you over the head with a PowerPoint. I actually want to spend a little bit more time doing a live search. But this set of slides kind of talks about what's going on behind the scene, so to speak, or under the hood when we're searching in the library. So I think this will help. So what we're going to do then is we're going to cover really quickly why I think the library stuff is better than just searching online. We're going to go through a quick intro. Oh, we're not going to do that. I'm sorry. I meant to take that out of the slide. But we are going to see, if we have time, Doodle tools, if you think that's relevant, and how to find further assistance. So really quickly, what's the library database? Like any database, like if you think about like the database at your bank, there's, multiple records in that database. That record would be, contain your name, your account balance, the interest rate, whatever that you have on your account. And each of those different features would be fields. So a library database has the same kind of a thing, except that instead of the fields, the records being, your bank account information, the records are books or their magazine articles or their journal articles, that kind of a thing. And then the fields that are searchable are the text of the document, or the text of the article, the text of the book, the title, the author's name. These are all searchable fields. So when I'm evaluating what I'm looking at, and this applies to whether I'm looking at something online, just in Google or whatever, or in a library database, first thing I always consider is the authority. And by that, what I mean is 2 things. Who's the author? That's the real basic part, but also what makes that person an authority on the subject. So in the library databases, it's easier to determine because, as I said, there's a field that has to be filled in or purposely left blank for the author's name. So I know who the author is almost all the time. Plus, when it comes to authority in that other sense, the library databases have this peer review and scholarly filter so that if I need to, I can even up the ante and get a higher level of authority. Online, it's difficult to find out sometimes who the author is behind the document. So that kind of that whole process is a little more doubtful. And it's difficult to limit to scholarly literature, except, with the exception of Google Scholar. But, in my experience, searching in Google Scholar can be a little difficult because it's easy to find stuff, but a lot of times what you'll discover is that it's not there in its entirety. You'll find a citation, but you won't find the whole article, and that article will live behind a paywall. And, then you have to go pay $40 to read an article. You don't have to do that in a library. Oh, and that's odd too. Well, in any case, it's easier to focus in the library because we have databases for specific topics, which is kind of cool. The sources are quality controlled in the sense that everything gets reviewed before it goes in. So you spend a lot less time dealing with junk. When we come to reliability or credibility, library databases are generally evaluated, as I said, before the stuff gets published. And of course, your professors will always be more impressed if they see you're using stuff from the library because of that. So take advantage. Library stuff, of course, is reviewed and updated regularly, which is kind of a nice feature. That's, when you're looking at a periodicals database, for instance, the reason magazines and journal articles are called periodicals is because they're updated on a regular period, daily, weekly, monthly, that kind of a thing. So you can always count on new information coming out. Online, as we know, there's no formal review process. Any of us can publish anything we feel like, which means you have to evaluate everything for yourself. Coming down to utility, I'm not going to lie to you. The library's databases are harder to use than Google. That's almost by design. It's not that we're purposely setting hurdles in front of you for you to jump over, but it's by its nature, it's a precision tool. So in a library database you have, it's a precision tool as opposed to this blunt instrument, which is searching, online. And, I liken it to, think about, getting your driver's license. That's a fairly simple process to, learning how to fly a plane. Flying a plane is a lot harder, but it's much cooler and it gets you there faster, right? So that's kind of a way to think about it. You're going to go further and get more out of using the library stuff. Libraries to plane in that metaphor. You can limit by subject and format. So, when I'm looking for books online, in Google, yeah, I can do Google Books, and that's okay. In the library, I have whole databases that are full of nothing but books. I have other databases that are full of nothing but articles. I can do that kind of limiting if I want. The library's resources include citations and references, so it's easy to cite the sources once I have them. A lot of advanced search features too. We'll see a couple of them. And as I mentioned before, you're not going to pay for anything in the library. You already paid for it. And, just sort of contrast that with searching online. It's not as easy to do anything. It's easy to do everything, so to speak, online, but it's not easy to do any particular thing because it's not set up that way. It's not what it's about. And when it comes to building citations or putting together a list of references, it's difficult to do because there's no fixed field on a library website for where they need to put the author's name, if at all, or where they need to put the date of publication, that kind of stuff. And it's difficult too to limit the full text. So a couple more quick slides on what goes on under the hood when you're looking at the library. So, and all search engines kind of do this. They all operate on these Boolean operators, and they are or, and not. And I'll show you some examples really quickly when we get in there. So the or is for expanding a search. So say, for instance, I was interested in researching prunes. Well, another fancy term now they use for prunes is dried plums. So if I were to search the library database for prunes or dried plums, basically I'm telling it, go and find everything in this database that has the word prunes in it. Go and find everything that has the word dried plums in it. But bring me back both. If it has either one, either or, I want them. In direct contrast, say for instance, I'm looking for cherries. I want to research that. But I'm really interested in Washington cherries, Washington State being famous for its cherries. So now I'm telling the database, go and find every article that has the word cherries in it. Go and find every article that has the word Washington in it, but only bring me back those that have both. So the union of those two sets. And finally, the not, that's a completely different kind of a thing. That's for seriously trimming down my results sometimes. So say, for instance, I'm interested in Washington cherries, but I'm not interested in George Washington chopping down a cherry tree. I can tell it, find everything that has Washington cherries in it, but leave out the stuff that has George. Okay, there you go. That's my slideshow. Now I'm going to do a quick live demo. I want to show the results. Did you guys fill anything in? No? Oh, well. Maybe it didn't work as well as I'd hoped. We'll have to come back to that one another time. Let's go to the live demo. So on the library, or you can get to the library, I should say, by a couple of different ways. There is a link in the student portal, and there is also a link in your Canvas course. I would almost defy anybody to find the link to the library in the Canvas course because it's buried about 3 or 4 clicks deep under resources someplace in one of those modules. You can also just bookmark library.devry.edu, which I recommend. That's a great way to get to the library's databases. And a couple of things when you do come to the library homepage, there's this one box in the middle of the page. I'm going to tell you, I kind of have a bit of a prejudice against it. It's supposed to search everything that the library has to offer. it does a pretty good job of searching a little less than half of what the library has to offer. So when you go there, I usually recommend students, that's the place just do like a quick and dirty search just to find out what's there. But if I really, really want to find out what the library has, I'm going to go into the individual databases. Because I remember I just mentioned, these databases have all these cool features. If I use this sort of a blanket search box, I don't get to use all those cool features anyway. But before I jump in there, let me just show you, because I have a tendency to talk really fast and there's a lot for me to cover. I want to show you the Ask a Librarian service. I just want you to be aware that we exist, and if you have any questions, about this presentation or about any of your research assignments going forward, you can come to the Ask a Librarian page and ask us a question, and we'll help you out. Anything related to research, that's what we're here for. So there's the live chat option. You can also email us if you don't want to actually talk to anybody in real time. There's also the 800 number. And just scroll down the page just mentioned, so you can see that, 800-293-3044. So you can call us. And we're open all regular business hours in this time zone, as well as the hours of the Ask a Librarian service. So in the Eastern time zone, that's not too bad. You can see we're open until 11 o'clock tonight, for instance. Finally, there's this thing called the IROC, an Individual Research Online Consultation, a very unwieldy name for a really handy service. And basically, the IROC is an opportunity for you to meet, or you and your team, to meet with a librarian for up to an hour, typically via WebEx, like we're doing right now. And you can, essentially, you're going to spend that time with the librarian as a research guide. So you can ask, the librarian any kind of research question, and we'll help you through the process. That could be everything from, I don't know how to get started, I don't know how to narrow down this topic, what kind of resources do you have on this topic, which resources are best, how do I cite them, all that good stuff. So that's something to take advantage of. When you click on that, it just spawns a form. You fill in the blanks. The key part of it, in addition to you putting in what your question is you tell us 3 days and times. That's what these choices are. 3 days and times that work for you. And then one of the librarians who can meet you at one of those days and times will contact you and set up a WebEx appointment. So that's that. I just wanted you to be aware. A couple of different ways of reaching a librarian. Plus, there's this thing called the Quidget, which is basically just a quick, easy way of asking a librarian a question, and that box shows up on every page of the library homepage, or website, I should say. Okay. Databases. So we have a whole bunch of databases. You could, if you wanted to, you could review them by subject, but I'm going to just run through a couple that I think you'll find really useful. One of them is called, well, before I go there, just to sort of spell out to you what's going to happen. As we have various databases like ABI Inform, which comes to us from ProQuest, Academic Search Complete, which we get from EBSCOhost. And you'll see each of these has a name of the company that makes it available. That's kind of a hint to you that as you go further down the page, you can see, so there's tons of different databases available from EBSCO, from ProQuest, and so on. And when I go and I click on, say, EBSCOhost, all right, well, if you haven't logged in through the student portal and you come to the library, you would have to do this. All right. There we go. So it'd be essentially your portal login. So if you don't go through the portal, you would put in your portal login and then you're in the library databases. If you ever see any other kind of a login, like if it asks for the year and month of your birth date or something crazy like that, the quick and easy thing to do is just to clear the cache on your browser, close out the browser, and then try again. If that doesn't work, get on the Ask a Librarian service and we'll walk you through, because that shouldn't show up, but sometimes it just keeps cropping up for no good reason. It's something to do with like things timing out. Sort of like the zombie web page we can't kill. So we're working on it. In any case, if that happens and you can't get rid of it, come see us in the Ask a Librarian service. So, but here, what I was trying to show you was when you get to the library academic or EBSCOhost page, it tells you you're searching academic search complete, but you're actually searching all of these. So searching business, computer applied stuff, consumer health, et cetera, et cetera. So essentially, I'm searching all of the EBSCO databases, all those databases that had the word EBSCO after them. Same way, like if I were to scroll down here, way down on a page, if I clicked on ProQuest Central, I'm effectively searching every database that ProQuest has available to us. And you'll notice that they have slightly different search interfaces. I'm going to show you the EBSCOhost one because I think it's a little harder to use, but it does illustrate both databases pretty well. So I'm just going to search for something that I know comes up quite a lot. Oops. And as I always say, if you learn nothing else, you learn that the librarian does not know how to type. Okay, so yeah, this is a question that comes up quite a bit. So you can see we got like 44,000 results almost. And it's telling me right here, I'm looking at the first 10 of 43,810 results. What's nice is that they come up in relevance order. So I could change that if I wanted and make them come up with the newest articles first. But I don't usually worry about that because I want to see the most relevant material. The reason I don't worry about the date is because right over here on the left-hand side, there are various search options. So I can tell it, you know, I want to search just within the past, you know, maybe I just want to search within the past 10 years or 5 years, something like that. I can do that. I can set that limiter. Other things that I can do, like if you look at this set of results, you'll see that I have ebooks in my results. I have academic journal articles. There's even a couple of video clips in here. But if I needed to, I could just the academic journals, leave that other stuff out. If I just wanted to see journal articles, for instance. So that's a way of narrowing things down. But here's something, you know, I jumped in almost too fast. Let me back up a few links because I wanted to show you. From this page, what you can see, what's going on under the hood. That's why I mentioned those Boolean operators, because it's the default search mode now is, these are the search modes. This is what I'm doing when I'm doing my search. The default search mode, and it's a good one, is that it's either looking for the Boolean, using the Boolean operators, or it's going to expect a phrase. So that, for instance, when I type in organizational behavior, yeah, right. Organizational behavior. There you go. Good Lord. There you go. Okay. What it's looking for is it's looking for those two words as a phrase, or it's expecting to see the use of a Boolean operator. So, for instance, so I'll show you what that means. So when I do that search for organizational behavior, I got those 43,000 results. Maybe I'm interested in organizational behavior and motivation. So that's the Boolean operator. That's the and. I'm putting that in there. And if I want to use it all in one line, I have to literally type the word and. Otherwise, if I leave them just like organizational behavior motivation, if I take that out, that's a nonsense phrase. It doesn't make any sense. And my results will be limited severely. But if I do that, you'll see that's a great way of narrowing things down because now I'm getting at that organizational behavior aspect and I'm getting the motivation aspect. Like I said, I'm telling the database, find both of those things. Find the phrase organizational behavior, find that word motivation, but only give me back the ones that have both. So that's kind of cool. Then you see, like I said, I've really narrowed down the results. I went from, what did I have, 40,000 to 2,000. So that's really a great way of narrowing things down. You use those Boolean operators. And just, that was the old school way of doing that, by the way. Nowadays, we have, or I should say in this search mode, we could do this. So I can build some pretty cool searches. I can tell it, I can put organizational behavior and motivation in this line and narrow down the search that way. And you'll notice it gives me the same exact set of results. So let's see. The other one, maybe if I were interested in related concepts, like, maybe like employee engagement and motivation. In that case, maybe I would say or maybe I'm interested in these related concepts. I want to expand much a little bit. You'll see that my search results will, explode. Now I got 300,000 results. But here's why I get so excited about the Boolean operators. I mean, as excited as one can, is because I can stack up my search terms. So I could put that up here, organizational behavior or motivation, and down here I can tell it. And then down here I can put in, then I can put back organizational behavior. God, mercy. I get too excited, sorry. So much fun showing off library databases. But here you could do some really interesting things. So now I'm telling it, find either of those terms, organizational or employee engagement or motivation, and to make sure that it also has organizational behavior in it. It's going to be a completely different set of results. So it's kind of cool stuff. Different things you can do. My point here is sort of illustrating that old lame library joke. They call it research because you search and you search again. You're going to be constantly in there fiddling around with the search terms. Don't feel bad if you don't find what you're looking for the first time. And if you don't find that word or phrase that you're using isn't working, try something different. And a great place to find things that might be more useful would be, for instance, to click on an article that looks maybe kind of relevant. And then down here you can see, different terms that this database uses to discuss or describe these concepts. So these are, somebody went through and looked at this article and said, all right, it's about job performance, employee motivation, employee attitudes, et cetera, et cetera. So these are related concepts. And if I wanted to, I could, click on any one of them to find all the articles in this database on that particular concept. So there are different tricks that we can use to get in there and noodle around with what's in the library. How are we doing so far? Does that sound reasonable? Let me show you a couple other cool things that you can do within the EBSCO database. And I also want to point out a couple of things that should be working but aren't. So right now, of course, we're looking at the basic bibliographic information. And this is one of those things I was telling you about. This is what's so cool. Like there's a field here. Obviously, there's a field for the title of the article. But there's a field within this record for the author's name. There's a field that tells me the source, which is in this case, the Journal of Research in Commerce and Management. It tells me automatically when it was published, the volume, the issue number, page numbers, etc. All that stuff that I need to know for my citation. It's right there. It's easy to find, and it's in a regular location. I don't have to guess, which is nice. Going a little further down here, I can see the abstract of this article. In this case, it's only a short article. Sometimes, though, you get these incredibly long articles, 15, 20 pages long. It's nice then to have the abstract, which is essentially a summary of the article. So you can go through and skim the abstract and decide whether this article is going to be useful for you or not. Now, ordinarily, in happier times, if you did find an article that you liked, you could click here where it says Add to Folder. And here's my folder up here. So note when I click Add to Folder, now my folder icon tells me there's something in my folder. Right now, though, the folder feature in EBSCO is broken. The good people at EBSCO are working on it, but if you were to sign in, which is what you need to do if you want to save the content of your folder, you would, it will let you go so far as to create the profile. In a sense, you could fill in all the blanks, but it won't let you click through and finish the job. We're working on that. I hope to have that set up, again, within a week, but I can't promise anything. In the interim, if you wish to save articles for yourself, there's a couple of cool things that you can do. One that you can use, I find it probably even easier than throwing them in the folder and then retrieving them, is to email them to myself. So you just click where it says email over there, and then you can just put in your email address and send it to yourself. Of course, you could also send it to other people. Say you're working in a group and you want to share an article with your group. That'd be a great way. You can put in multiple email addresses and then just hit send. Another way to save or share an article would be by using this permalink down here. You see this little chain link icon. And what that does for us is it produces a persistent URL to this article and no other, which is really cool. So you could, again, send this link to somebody, copy and paste it into a threaded discussion, whatever. That will bring you, as I said, to this article. That's in direct contrast to this URL at the top of the page up in the search box, like the up here. This is useless. Don't ever send this one to anybody unless you want to drive them insane, because it's not going to help them anyway. This is just a temporary URL. This is the URL that lets us use the database. It only gets you to the database. It doesn't take you to this article. So there's no useful information in that. The information you want to share with somebody is this one here. That's the permalink, the persistent URL that brings you to this article.
Joe?
Yes.
If you send that permalink to someone, do they have to be logged into Canvas in order to see it, or logged into the course in order to see it?
They would need to, they don't need to be logged into Canvas or the portal, but they would have to log into, or I guess the portal, essentially, yes. Okta, whatever they call it.
You couldn't do it from your, in other words, you couldn't just be on your computer, and if you're not logged into DeVry, you wouldn't be able to access that, right? Because it's an internal.
It's behind the paywall, I guess you could say. But what would happen if you clicked on that link? What it would do then is it's going to bring you to. You remember when I had to log in? It's going to bring you to that login page, and then you're just going to log in. But once you do that, it's going to bring you straight to the article.
Joe, I had another question. Where it says along the left side, PDF full text available, right? Sometimes I see it'll say full text available, and then you click on it, but there's no full text available. Does that mean we just don't own that level of subscription in order to access an article?
I'd have to see it, but I think what that means is it might be that you've found an article that's available from one of the other vendors. So, for instance, if you use that one search box, I think that's when you would see that most frequently, because that does what I see most
frequently.
Yeah. So because what it's doing is it's finding the article in, say, ProQuest or one of the other databases that, because there's the thing. I mean, I'm not bad-mouthing the one search box. It works really well for EBSCO-hosted databases because it's an EBSCO product, so it's structurally set up to find EBSCO resources really well. It does a pretty good job of finding stuff in Credo Reference, which is another database. But after that, its functionality drops way down. It can find articles, say, from ProQuest, but that's when it's going to do that. It's going to say, yeah, full text is available, and then it kind of breaks down. It used to take you to a link for the article, and then after like 3 more clicks, you would actually get to the article. That seems to have broken. I don't think they've even tried to fix that anymore. So yeah, when that happens, what that means is it's available in one of the other databases. I would say 99 times out of 100, that database is ProQuest. So you could just go over to ProQuest and run the same search. Or, if you have the citation for it, at that point, you got everything. You can just take the title or whatever, copy and paste it and punch it into ProQuest, and it'll probably come right up for you. Which is actually a nice segue, because I was kind of running out of content on this database. Unless there are questions on what else we might find in EBSCO. This is something I don't always point out, but these are those fields that I was talking about. Fields, endless fields. Because you can find the words that you're looking for in a text. If you were looking for a particular author, you could put in the author's name, title of an article, all these different ways of narrowing things down. They don't use that kind of stuff very often. Keyword searching really does most of the heavy lifting, but it's nice to know that you have those other options if you need them. Yeah, but when I click on PDF full text, it should actually bring up the full text of the article. And this is what that should look like when it happens. Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you what, why don't we bounce over to ProQuest, which is right here. I'll just do a quick, same kind of search over here. ProQuest is a little easier in a way because it does a lot of that searching for you, or a lot of sort of putting stuff together for you. Let's just see what we get if we get organizational behavior. It can be frustrating, though, because it sort of pulls apart your search terms. So where EBSCO automatically is looking for the search terms as a phrase, ProQuest will do, it's going to look for those two words together, but then it's also going to look at those two words separately. That I got, as you can see, over 500,000 results, which is, too much to be useful. I can defeat that handy feature if I want to put quotation marks around the terms. Then it tells it that as a phrase. So you'll notice that I've cut it down substantially. This also has that nice feature where if I wanted to, I could, limit it to peer-reviewed articles if that were necessary. I could limit by publication date. So, again, maybe I don't want, articles from, 50 years ago. And I just use that little slide bar and then update it. And then you'll notice I could even go further. Like if I wanted to, I could go down to, past couple of years kind of a thing. But you'll know, as you can see already, it cut it down quite a lot. And then this one, you just keep piling the terms on. So you don't have to worry about the and. It's doing the and for you. And then you can find, just click on the article if you find one you like. And there's the article. Oh, look at the databases. I meant to point out in EBSCO too, it has this, we're back over in EBSCO now. It has this citation feature. Take it with a grain of salt, a pretty large grain of salt, I would say too, because it does it kind of does the formatting the way it's supposed to be, but it messes up a lot of times with capitalization and dates, and it even says so right here. Pay special attention because this is the stuff that we mess up. It's basically it's a garbage in, garbage out model, so it's just picking up stuff from here, from the actual article as it was scanned into the database. So that, for instance, if the author's name is in uppercase letters, it's going to be uppercase here. Of course, the APA convention is that would be, just capital T and capital M, and everything else would be lowercase. Same thing here. It's trying to do the right thing, but it doesn't quite grasp that. APA convention, we only capitalize the first word of the first letter of the first word. Sometimes, if we have abbreviations like HR, that should be capital H, capital R, but that would be lowercase p, lowercase e, lowercase e. In contrast, the title of the journal, that should be italicized, and we capitalize all the major words. That's an abbreviation, CLEAR, so that's good as it is. We don't have to mess with that. This part here is gibberish, though, which should be taken out. And then the rest looks pretty good. So it has volume and issue number, page numbers, and where the article came from. So the heavy lifting has been done. You still have to fix it a little bit. By contrast, ProQuest seems to be a little better at that. So you can see that this one looks almost perfect. Yeah. And you'll notice too, this was a good example of, so you can see article title, everything's lowercase the way it should be. Title of the journal, that's all proper, done well. Volume and issue number, page number is good. And this includes a DOI, a digital object identifier. So that's a sort of a unique number that's applied to articles, or I should say documents in digital format. So that could take that number, that DOI, and kind of put it into any search engine. And if it's available within that resource, within that database, it'll come up. So I could Google that DOI, and it should bring me this particular article, or at least a reference to it. I could put this into EBSCO, and if it's in the database, it would come up, that kind of a thing. So there are citation generators, and then there are citation generators. So I guess at this point, my question is, do we have any questions about finding stuff? Maybe even if somebody has a specific question, if they want to put it into the chat box, I'd be happy to take a look at your particular research question. Or maybe even both, we could bounce over to see the Noodle Tools resource and see how that works for APA citation, if anybody's interested in that.
I think that one takes quite a bit of time, Joe, and so maybe we can defer that at this time.
That's fine. Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't show everything. Maybe I'll just show you where it is. How's that? I won't go into it.
Sure.
So that Noodle Tools is right here on the library databases page. Yeah, and that's this right here. And it's not technically a database. All right, so first time you come, if you decide to use it, you would have to register. You fill in the blanks. And I'll just show you what it looks like. I won't go in and actually do anything, because it can be a lengthy process. But if you came over here, you'll have a blank screen where I'm going to have like 50 projects. But the first time you come here, there'll be nothing here. You would just click for new project. You put in, you make up your project title, tell it you want APA, tell it you want the advanced version. You hit submit. And then once you have a project open, then you can go click on that project title. It'll bring you to this kind of a page, basically a landing page. In my experience, not too many people take advantage of this. They really use this thing for the sources. And you can see I've already put in some things in my list of references. If I wanted to create a new one, I would click there. It's going to ask me what kind of thing I want to do. Maybe I want to find a magazine or journal article. And this is what's cool about it. So it's going to walk me through the whole process. So you'll see it's just going to generate a form. I'm going to fill in the blanks. I go down here, I hit save, and then I have a brand new citation. But if you wanted to see other cool things about that, so then when I'm all done, I have one of my citations here. Things that it'll do for me, like it'll show me how to do the in-text reference. So you can see, for instance, blah, 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 at the end of your sentence, authors' names, date of publication. If it were a direct quote, I put in a page number, and you'll notice it does that, and that's what it should look like. Then it goes on in excruciating detail to tell me all about the various options for doing that in different ways. So if you wanted to read all that, you could do that too. And in fact, I encourage it. Recognizing that that kind of stuff is tedious to just about anybody but a librarian or a bibliographer. But it's there if you need it. Other things you can do with this then when you're done, when you have all of your citations or references prepared, you could then export it to Word, and then you just append it to your Word document, and you're all set. If you wanted to see what it looks like before you do that, you could just do this. And you'll see it even goes so far as to put in the hanging indent. So it's really kind of cool. Does a pretty nice job. I've not caught it in an error yet. So I like Noodle Tools quite a lot. There you have it. That's Noodle Tools and ProQuest and EBSCOhost in a nutshell. Is there anything else we want to talk about tonight? Or
anyone have any questions for Joe while we have him on the line? No, they say. No questions in the
fine. All right then.
Thank you for coming on such short notice. We really appreciate that.
Oh, it was my pleasure entirely. As it turns out, I was here anyway. So now I go back to the Ask a Librarian service. So, and that's where to find me. If you have any questions, don't be bashful. Come to the Ask a Librarian service. That's what we're there for.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
If everyone will just stay on the line except for Joe, I'm going to just take you through this week's assignments. Share content. Hang on here while I try to get you to see my screen. Nothing's working tonight here. I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties over here. Okay, it's just not going to work maybe because Joe had taken over the screen and it just won't go back to me. So I'm just going to walk you through what to do this week, and I'll kind of just do it by audio. There's a rough draft due this week of your paper. So this is good because it helps to build up to that final paper. You're actually accruing points as we move forward towards the final paper. Do any of you have any questions on what's required in the final paper or what to do this week? I see somebody typing, but I am not seeing it. There we go. You stick to the same topic. So once you've chosen a topic, I will get to your outlines by tomorrow and give you my feedback, but you should start working on that. And the milestones, obviously, in week 5, you did a topic selection. This week, you're going to do the rough draft. This is going to be worth 75 points. And the final commentary will be 165 points. So it's really critical that you get in this rough draft so that I can get in and grade it and give you editing feedback and things like that. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't edit on your own. Run it through Grammarly, run it through Microsoft Word. There's not only a spell check. I think people forget there's a grammar check in Microsoft Word because you want to accrue as many points each week as possible. And the closer you can get that rough draft into final draft form, the better off you are because the more I'm seeing of it. Remember that you have to have 3 pages due this week. And then the full complement of papers is due in week 7. So hopefully you've begun working on it, and maybe this research lesson tonight will help you to even delve further into the library. What am I looking exactly? You know, I'm looking for the first 3 pages of your paper. So it really depends on your topic. The 3 pages doesn't include the references page, but you should put a references page on there. In fact, in any class where you're doing a research-based paper, your cover page and your references page do not go towards the final page count. So if you're doing a 5-page paper, the expectation is that it's 5 pages of double-spaced content. So these are good questions. But you should put the references there because I'd like to see that you're doing the references page correctly. And I did a video last week. If you didn't see that video, you really should go back and do it. I also watch it. I also emailed it to you. So make sure you look at that video because I think that will help you a lot. The first 3 pages, nope, not a summary of the rough draft. You're doing the first 3 pages of the rough draft. So it should begin looking like a paper. I'm sorry about that. Let me just turn my phone off. If we look at the directions, and again, I'm sorry I can't project my screen here, but just in looking at the directions for week 6, they're pretty comprehensive. If you look at the commentary rough draft, it says the first 3 pages of your commentary are due this week. The week's draft should include, and then it goes into the introduction, having a thesis, discussion of the background of other perspectives within the larger conversation, body paragraphs that explain, support, and answer the thesis, effective use of parenthetical citations using direct quotes, summary, and the proper APA style. There is also a rubric for this. So make sure you go into files and go into rubric and fish that out. So you make sure that you're hitting each one of those particular columns. Do we have any other questions? I was thinking about putting a sample up there if you think it would help. But again, everyone's topic is so different. I don't know that a sample would really help. Like you'd be just reading someone else's paper. But you want me to put it there? Okay, sure. I'll put it in the files area, and I will also I'll put it in the announcements as well. So if that helps you, that's fine. Anytime. I want you guys to all do well. They do help you. Okay, sure. Okay. I'm glad we had that conversation then. So remember to keep participating. You are all doing well. I think that coming to these midweek huddles just helps to keep you focused and is helping you to really achieve what you're capable of achieving. So just keep it up. You're doing a great job. If there are no other questions, I'm going to end tonight's recording.